The skies over Europe were once ruled by the Luftwaffe, Germany's mighty air force. But then, a strange new American fighter appeared, seemingly overnight. It was called the P-51 Mustang, a machine built in just 117 days that would terrify seasoned German aces and shatter the odds facing Allied bomber crews. In 1943 alone, unescorted bombers were being slaughtered, with catastrophic losses piling up over Schweinfurt and Regensburg. Yet, within months, this improbable aircraft, transformed by a British engine, turned the tide of the entire air war. Why were German pilots so afraid? And how did such a desperate gamble become World War II's greatest game-changer? The answer begins with a crisis, a design, and a race against disaster. In the spring of 1940, Britain's Air Command faced a crisis. The Luftwaffe was pressing hard, and the Royal Air Force needed fighters fast. North American Aviation, led by James Kindleberger and designer Edgar Schmood, was asked to build more P-40 Warhawks under license. But Kindleberger offered something bold, a brand new fighter, designed from scratch and ready to fly in just 117 days. The NA-73X prototype took to the air on the 26th of October 1940, a feat of American engineering with a laminar flow wing and a sleek body that outshone anything flying over Europe. Early tests showed the Mustang could hit 415 miles per hour at sea level, outpacing even the best Spitfires below 15,000 feet. The RAF quickly put the Allison-powered Mustang to work in roles where speed and agility mattered most. It became a favorite for low-level reconnaissance, darting over occupied France and the Low Countries, snapping photos and mapping enemy positions. On these missions, Mustangs often returned without a scratch. Channel raids, fast in-and-out strikes against coastal targets, showed just how slippery the new fighter could be. Records from 1942 and 1943 tell the story. Minimal losses, despite zipping through flak and enemy patrols. The Mustang's low-altitude performance also saved London from Germany's V-1 flying bombs. RAF pilots flew Mustangs at treetop height, using their speed to tip or shoot down these pilotless missiles before they reached the capital. Through these exploits, the Mustang built a reputation as a survivor and a hunter. For British pilots, it was a machine that could outrun trouble and bring them home safe. But as the war deepened and Allied bombers pushed further into German territory, a new challenge loomed, a hidden flaw in the Mustang's design. The first Merlin-powered Mustangs took to the air in the fall of 1942, and the results were immediate. At 26,000 feet, the new engine gave the Mustang a top speed boost of over 100 miles per hour, transforming it from a low-level specialist into the fastest Allied fighter at bomber altitudes. British test flights confirmed what the numbers suggested. The Mustang could now chase down German interceptors at the same heights where bomber formations flew. But while engineers celebrated the breakthrough, the crisis in the skies over Germany was reaching its worst point. In the summer and autumn of 1943, American bombers pressed deeper into enemy territory, targeting factories and ball-bearing plants that kept the German war machine running. The Luftwaffe responded with a deadly mix of flak and mass fighter attacks. On August 17, 376 B-17 seconds set out for Schweinfurt and Regensburg. 60 never returned. Over 600 airmen were killed or captured in a single day. 2 months later, on Black Thursday, October 14, 291 bombers attacked Schweinfurt again. 60 were shot down, and another 17 were so badly damaged they were written off. Out of 2,900 crewmen, 650 were lost, and over 100 bombers limped home with battle scars. Loss rates soared past 25%, and only a quarter of 8th Air Force crews finished their tours. The math was brutal. At this rate, the bomber offensive would collapse in months. Desperate for a solution, the Air Force experimented with the YB-40 gunship, a B-17 bristling with extra turrets and machine guns to protect its own kind. But the YB-40 was too heavy and too slow. It lagged behind the formation once the bombers dropped their loads, making it an easy target for German fighters. The experiment was abandoned after just a handful of missions. The message was clear. No amount of defensive firepower could substitute for a true escort fighter with the speed, altitude, and endurance to stay with the bombers all the way to the target and back. With the arrival of the P-51 Mustang's drop tanks, the old rules of the air war vanished overnight. External fuel tanks slung beneath the wings more than doubled the Mustang's range, stretching its reach to nearly 1,600 miles. On outbound legs, pilots drained the drop tanks first, preserving every drop in the fuselage for the fight ahead. As soon as enemy fighters appeared, a quick pull of the jettison lever sent the emptied tanks tumbling away, restoring the Mustang's speed and agility in seconds. The transformation was immediate. Suddenly, American fighters could stick with bombers from English fields all the way to Berlin and back. But it wasn't just about flying farther. The extra fuel unlocked a new kind of mission. Jimmy Doolittle, now commanding the 8th Air Force, issued a simple order: "Don't just escort, hunt." Mustang squadrons began sweeping ahead of the bombers, diving on German interceptors as they scrambled from airfields or formed up for attack. The days of clinging tight to the bomber stream were over. Now the Mustangs owned the initiative, breaking up enemy formations before they could even reach the bombers. German pilots, once able to time their attacks for when Allied fighters peeled away, found themselves pursued at every altitude, every stage of the mission. The P-51D made this new doctrine lethal. Its bubble canopy gave pilots a full 360-degree view. No more blind spots, no more surprise attacks from behind. 6 0.5 caliber machine guns laid down a wall of fire, and the upgraded Merlin engine delivered the speed to chase down even the fastest Luftwaffe fighters. With drop tanks gone and throttles wide open, Mustangs could climb, turn, and dive with the best of them. The message was clear. Nowhere in German airspace was safe. For the first time, American pilots dictated the terms of battle, and the Luftwaffe was forced onto the defensive. Imagine the terror of German pilots. According to post-war interrogations of German prisoners, they agreed the P-51 Mustang was the best American fighter, superior in speed, range, and firepower. Erich Hartmann, Germany's top ace, once admitted, "The P-51 was a formidable opponent, with a range that left us nowhere to hide. They knew its performance, but German intelligence failed to respond in time." German fighter pilots entered 1,944 already on the defensive, but by spring, the pace of losses outstripped anything the Luftwaffe had faced before. In March alone, 583 frontline fighters were lost in the West. April saw that number jump to 687, and by May, it hit 758. The pilots fared no better. Out of an average force of 2,283-day fighter pilots, 2,262 were lost between January and May, nearly a full turnover of Germany's experienced airmen in just 5 months. The odds of survival plummeted. A German pilot flying over France or Germany was 7 times more likely to be shot down than one on the Eastern Front. The reason was clear. Mustang sweeps now hunted interceptors before they could reach the bombers. Groups of P-51 seconds roamed ahead, pouncing on Bf 109 seconds and few 190 seconds as they formed up, then circling back to strafe airfields and catch returning fighters low on fuel. The old tactic of massing for a single overwhelming attack fell apart. German formations broke under pressure, scattered by surprise attacks, or were caught as they scrambled to take off. The twin-engine Bf 110, once the backbone of bomber-killing units, became an easy mark. Designed for long-range missions and heavy firepower, it couldn't outturn or outclimb the Mustangs. By March, daylight sorties with BF 110 seconds were so costly that the type was pulled from daytime Reich defense. Veteran crews, once feared for their discipline and accuracy, now watched helplessly as their formations were shredded before they could close on the bombers. To counter the Mustangs, German engineers loaded their single-engine fighters with heavier cannons, 20 millimeters and even 30 millimeters guns, meant to bring down bombers in a single pass. But the extra weight crippled their performance. Climb rates dropped, acceleration lagged, and dogfighting became a losing game. Mustang pilots exploited every advantage, forcing head-on passes, then rolling into tight turns or diving away with superior speed. The Luftwaffe's best had little room to maneuver. Listen to the story of George Preddy, an American ace with 26 kills on the P-51. When I dove on an FW-190, the Mustang was like a wild horse. Fast, powerful, and unstoppable. I saw the German pilot panic, trying to turn, but it was too late. By early summer, the numbers told the story. In April, the Luftwaffe wrote off 43% of its frontline fighters and lost a fifth of its pilots. In May, half the single-engine fighters were gone, along with a quarter of the remaining pilots. In just 5 months, the day fighter force was gutted, with nearly every original pilot lost to death, wounds, or capture. The relentless pressure from Mustang sweeps didn't just bleed the Luftwaffe in the air. It paralyzed training, forced dispersal of units, and left airfields cratered and burning. By mid-1944, German daylight air defense was unraveling. The skies over Europe no longer belonged to the hunters. The hunted now wore black crosses. Mustangs thundered down to treetop level, their wings bristling with 10 HVAR rockets and 2 500-pound bombs strapped beneath. Rail yards, truck convoys, and airfields became prime targets. A single pass could flip a locomotive and leave it burning or scatter armored vehicles across a country road. The Mustang's 0.5 caliber guns shredded parked fighters before they ever left the ground. For German troops and pilots, the threat now came from above and below, day after day. But for every clear target, the lines between right and wrong blurred. Major Richard Peterson, flying escort, watched a German pilot circle back to gun down American airmen as they floated helplessly in their parachutes. Peterson closed in, firing to force the BF 109 down. When the German bailed out, Peterson made a split-second choice. He opened fire on the descending pilot, emptying his guns in a moment fueled by anger and the chaos of war. The Mustang's power brought victory, but not always peace of mind. As 1944 drew to a close, German pilots braced for a new kind of threat, the Me-260, two-jet, with its blistering speed that could outrun any piston-engine fighter. But Mustang pilots found their opening not in the air but on the ground. They began prowling German airfields, catching jets during takeoff or landing when their speed advantage vanished. In April 1945, Mustangs escorted B-29 superfortresses on their first daylight raid over Japan, stretching their range across the vast Pacific. Over the home islands, they tangled with the last of the Japanese Zero fighters, machines that once ruled the skies, now outclassed and outnumbered. Even as jets took over the future, the P-51 never faded from memory. Veterans called it the best-loved fighter of the war, a symbol of freedom and reach. Decades later, its unmistakable silhouette still turns heads at air shows. Luftwaffe records from spring 1944 show the BF 110 was withdrawn from daylight defense after heavy losses to P-51 seconds. The Mustang's 1,600-mile range, 6 0.5 caliber machine guns, and all-round visibility gave U.S. pilots new dominance at bomber altitudes and far beyond. Evidence from Allied after-action reports and German pilot accounts confirms the P-51's presence shifted air superiority, forcing German fighters to abandon mass attacks and leaving supply lines exposed to Mustang ground strikes. And what about you? What do you think made the P-51 Mustang a legend? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to explore more aviation history stories. Thanks for watching.